So I'm going to talk about a sort of a revolution that's taking place right now at the front end. So that, of course, relates perfectly to the user experience and customer obsession Per was here talking about. So this presentation is going to be a combination of technical stuff and business stuff. And I know most of you are business people, but I've sort of tried to build this presentation from the perspective that this much every business person should care about technology. This is the level. So you can call me Miksu, that's my nickname. I'm founder of Frosmo. Next year it's going to be 10 years. 10 years, think about it. Originally Frosmo was a platform for game developers for browser-based gaming. If you remember, Facebook gaming was really big at that time. Farmville, everyone was playing Farmville. That market disappeared when iPhone started to hit with the native mobile games. So the browser-based gaming, that market disappeared. So we needed to reinvent Frosmo in 2011, 2012. But we had used technology called JavaScript right from the beginning. So that was our lifesaver. And today we are here, powerhouse of about 100 Frosmonauts and growing fast. I'm a narcissistic entrepreneur, so I could just talk hours and hours, but that would be very boring for you guys. So that's why how we're going to do it today is that I'm going to talk in about 5-minute blocks. And then you guys are in small tables, small groups. So I'm going to ask a question to you guys, and then you can have a group conversation about it, 1 to 2 minutes. And then we continue again, me talking maybe 5 minutes about that particular topic. Is that fine for you guys? So may I ask you two gentlemen, I know sitting on a couch, having conversation there, that's great. Do you want to go that way or you want to take the last table? You can choose. If you like couch conversation, that's good. It's your choice. You two are going to have nice conversation there. You promise? You promise that? Great. Good. Okay. Are you guys ready? So the first question is going to be, what on earth is digital experience? Everyone's talking about consumer experience, but what is digital experience? And furthermore, what are consumer expectations for a superior digital experience? That's my question to you guys. Can you try to define what digital experience consists of? Total silence. Too early. It's already 10 o'clock. Make a wild guess. There should be one Frosmonaut in every table to help to spark the conversation. So, I'm yours. What do you guys think? Digital experience. What all could it consist of? So, of course, it's about digital services, but more particularly, what do you guys think? Have you heard about this term before? Someone using this digital experience management, digital experience development.
The digital experience for a consumer, or you mean, yeah, the consumer on a...
It's from the business perspective. Like, what does it mean for us businesses? When we build it, when we manage it, when we develop it. So this is like a new market. It's a new terminology invented by Forrester and Gartner. And it's sort of trying to explain like, cross-platform and also because usually when people talk about user experience, it might be quite narrow-minded that it's related to conversion optimization. But in order to run your business successfully, you need much more holistic approach. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, All right, guys. Apparently, this was quite new term for you guys. This digital experience development and management. So this is invented by Forrester and Gardner, big uh, software analyst companies or business analyst companies, and the idea is that, for example, user experience or consumer experience, that particular term quite often narrows people to think about just about, for example, conversion optimization. And in order to be successful in modern e-commerce business when the competition is heating up, you need to have more holistic approach. So that's why, how we see it, digital experience consists of three forces. First of all, front-end development. It's not just A/B testing, but it's the whole stack related to developing the front end of your digital services. Secondly, it's not just about the software development, but you have to have the business requirements. So of course, what are the company's business goals, strategy, requirements? How do we need to grow our business? And third force is then the consumer expectations. So this is quite holistic, broad description of what digital experience consists of. And there's a new software market emerging right now, and it's called digital experience management or digital experience development, dedicated to this. And I'm going to talk quite a lot about it because that's how what we've experienced at Frosmo also, is that you need to have quite holistic approach in order to be successful. But I try to narrow it down with some practical examples. The reason why in the United States they are talking about this digital experience and why it's so important, they are twofold. The first one is the business reason. And this graph explains it. This is the price of 1,000 impressions in Facebook. The price has increased 18.3 times in just 5 years. It is 18 times more expensive to buy traffic to your web store compared to 5 years ago. There is no way you as a company can buy yourself into success with advertising. That time is over. Maybe it was possible 5 years ago, but not anymore. If you want to be a successful consumer business, you probably need to have approximately at least 1 million customers. Buying 1 million customers with these prices, you're never going to get that investment. It's not possible. So what you need to do is you need to start making more money out of your investments, marketing investments. And that means starting to perfect your digital experience. Here's an example. This is just a rough example of accumulation of costs when you want to acquire one new customer. I've kept it very simple because majority of the companies, over 90%, don't know actually how much it costs for them to acquire a new customer, completely new customer. So this is one hypothetical example of a customer journey, the steps that are involved. So let's assume you have a magnificent advertising team who manages to get steady flow of visitors to your site from advertising campaign with €1 per visit. Very rare these days. They arrive to your site, so 1 out of 10 will accept email spamming from you guys. It's a pretty regular number, 1 out of 10. It's actually pretty good. So now you've already spent €10 to get a new visitor, new customer to this step. Then you send those emails to them, and 1 out of 10 come back to your site. Now you've spent already €100. Let's assume 1 out of those 10 1 out of 10 again will surf around your website and start choosing the products they prefer. You've already needed 1,000 visitors to get to this point. That's 1,000 euros investment. Out of those who added products to the basket, on average, industry standard is roughly 1/3 will actually complete the purchase. You've spent 3,000 euros to acquire a new customer. It's pretty crazy. So what could happen if you start to really optimize these steps and focus on perfecting your web store digital experience? Let's assume that when they arrive to your web store, it's a little bit more targeted, a little bit more personalized. So you manage to ramp up the conversion to email sign up to 2 out of 10. You've saved 5 euros. Let's keep the email still the same. So 1 out of 10 arrive to your site from the emails you sent, but then you start to improve the experience itself. So 1 out of 5 start to actually add products to the basket. So now you've already saved 750 euros. And then let's improve 30% how your basket works. So 1 out of 2 who've added products to the basket will actually complete the purchase. It's 500 euros investment versus 3,000 euros investment. Simplified example. This is how you have to try to explain to usually to especially more upper management of the companies why the advertising investment is not enough. But you really need to start perfecting the digital experience continuously from every step of the journey. From technical perspective, what is happening at the market? What are sort of the drivers for this new world of digital experience management? There are 3 key reasons. The first is that despite e-commerce market is growing as we saw, the competition for consumers is heating up. And that is due to our expectations of superior user experience. We don't want to buy from stores that don't provide us that. The second factor is that, and this is really the revolution I'm going to talk about from the technical perspective, is that the front-end and back-end development are to be separated. I'm going to tell you soon why it's so important. And the third thing is that if you as companies want to succeed and survive, you need to be able to implement artificial intelligence models to your front end. Those are the 3 market drivers from technological perspective. One thing I'd like to remind you guys about is that the competition is not about the company at the next block. The competition is against the best companies in the world. It's not just about Amazon arriving here, but it's these companies who set the stage for the experience, what it needs to be. Because whenever you take a new Android or iPhone to your hand, you start, of course, downloading the best applications of the world. My next question is, because digital experience is a very broad thing, let's try to distill it down to this thinking of customer journeys. Because that's a practical, concrete example. It helps us to narrow down the thinking. So I would like to ask you guys to have conversations and share experience about if you have personalized customer journeys live at your site at the moment. And if you do you have multiple of them? Please. So personalized customer journeys, do you have those running? All right, guys. So, how many of you do have multiple personalized customer journeys running simultaneously at your site? You guys have? So, at one company has two companies. All right, great. What about at least one? Okay, so it's the same. So, don't worry. According to Forrester, only one company out of 10 is doing it. So 10% at the moment. So 90% of the companies are not implementing personalized customer journeys to their site. And of course, when you implement personalized customer journey, it has to be based on data. So you have to use this, what Forrester calls insights. So only 1 out of 10 companies are doing it. So it's not too late to start. But this is also what's happening at the market. What we see all the time is that the market is very polarized. There are companies who are very advanced in what they're doing, and then lots of companies that are not so advanced. How do we think about personalized customer journey at Frosmo? We first of all think that that is a key thing, essential thing to really exceed the consumer expectations about your service. And there are 4 steps to it when you really simplify it. First, you need to define to who you want to create this personalized customer journey. Is it the VIP customer of yours? Is it that new customer you're trying to acquire? Maybe it's based on the interests of the customers, or maybe you want to use demographics. That's a little bit about your business strategy also. Secondly, where in your service you want to provide these personalized experiences. It's not limited to just product recommendations, but it should be a consistent path through your service over multiple visits. Thirdly, what kind of elements you want to be part of this personalized customer journey. It really should consist of multiple different kind of elements. Maybe for your key segments, the whole front end is completely different. And then fourth, which is very important, is the when. TUI, for example, from travel, you guys think a lot about this customer journey, because in travel there are clear different phases. There's a dreaming phase, and then there's a planning phase, and then there's actually the purchase phase. So that's why this when is also a very critical factor, because that same thing applies for each company, each industry. It's just that the duration might be different. So even in betting industry, where there's a lot of transactions happening rapidly, you need to understand when you want to show what kind of version of this personalized customer journey. 4 steps, sounds very simple, sounds very intuitive, but the thing is that it's very difficult for most of the companies to implement. Why? Per was talking about this customer obsession, and this is from Forrester. How many things? 5 different things you need to take into account if you want to be able to create these personalized customers journeys and succeed as a company who's able to do this. First of all, of course, we've talking about this. You have to drive revenue with this great customer experience. Then the second thing is that you really need to become a technology company. You need to be able to understand as business people how to maximize the value of these technologies. You cannot just buy software these days and let your IT take care of it. The whole company needs to become insights driven. Everyone needs to start thinking about how do we use data to create these better customer journeys, maximizing the value of the technology we've invested to. Marketing is becoming, as I showed, it's so expensive these days that it is becoming really, really difficult. I'm not jealous about marketing professionals at all. It's a very challenging market. And then the last thing, which is quite funny, that lots of the companies have not yet realized that the best way to differentiate at the market, and in more and more cases, the only way to differentiate at the market is at your digital service. More and more the products, the physical products or services are the same with every company. So how do you differentiate yourself is with your digital service. So these are the 5 forces, and that's why it's so. By the way, you can have the slides after this meeting. You don't need to write everything down. That's why it's so difficult to be really good at that, what sounds very simple. And that's why it's always such a shock when you talk with companies that why they haven't been able to implement this, that everyone thinks it's an obvious thing. Because in order to be very successful implementing these personalized customer journeys and to be very successful in digital experience management and development, you have to be able to develop your service, and you as an organization, you have to be very fast because everything is changing so rapidly. You need to be able to do it continuously. There is no way anymore that you buy and implement one AI model to your site and then magically it just makes you money forever. That's not going to happen anymore. And then it has to be insights driven. So why? Why is it so difficult to implement these things to your site? So please, could you guys have a short conversation about if you haven't implemented any, why? What has been the challenge preventing you not to implement? And those of you guys who have experiences about it, how did you manage to do it? What were the challenges you faced? All right. So, what kind of challenges have you guys had? Did you? Okay. 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 Yeah. Uh huh. Okay. All right. There's a technological solution to that because you can still do personalized stuff for anonymous users. Yeah. Okay. Good. Nice. Exactly. Great. Nice. What about the couch guys? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Very good. So the market, how these analyst companies see it and how they've analyzed what's the biggest problem preventing to do this is, of course, because they're software analyst companies, they're looking at from the perspective of technology. And there are two key complexities usually. What makes this digital experience development so slow and painful? The first thing is that if you have one system that is responsible for too many things, that system becomes so complex that it's really slow and difficult to be fast, be insights driven. Uh, the other thing is that if you have too many different kind of systems and softwares and tools, etc., you manage to create what is called sort of a backend spaghetti, and you have so many data silos, etc., that you become slow because of that. So now you guys must be, of course, wondering like, well, what on earth can be the solution if one system cannot be good and too many systems cannot be good? So what is the perfect amount of systems? Well, humans are very clever, and of course, developers have realized how to solve this problem. So there's a massive solution taking place, massive change taking place right now. Some of you companies are already there. That's why we have also the Contentful speaking here. But there are really two big things. First of all, that the software development, the nature of it is changing. So developers don't want to be those old school hackers anymore, but developers want to work together. They want to be part of the design teams, business teams. They love it that their code is improved by other developers. So they want it to be faster, more flexible, and more open source. That's a big trend. The second thing is that the native mobile apps development is also changing to web tech, so web-based technologies. These are the two big forces that are taking place right now, and this is now we're going to start entering the part of the presentation where I'm going to talk about technology and software. But as said, this is the level of what us as business people should be able to understand. Otherwise, we won't be able to take the best out of the technology to build our businesses. So what is happening in order to be fast and flexible and insights driven for the digital experience development is that the front end and back end are separated. For us business people, what it means is that, and it might be a little bit difficult to comprehend, but it means that you used to have one system which both was responsible for adding the products, managing the products, and also creating the actual user interface of the website to the browser. And that is a big cause of this slowness and difficulties. So that's why front end, the experience that we as consumers want to experience, is going to be developed separately from the back end. And back end will handle payments, content, adding and removing products, etc. And just communicate with this front end. So two core systems. This can be called, and you might have heard about this, there's an approach called headless e-commerce or headless CMS. Some of you guys are Contentful users here, I think at least 2 companies. It also can be microservices approach, microservices architecture. It's a little bit more complex, usually for very large companies. Basically, from business person's perspective, it's trying to do the same thing. Trying to help you to become faster and more flexible. The third thing is that JavaScript, the development language I mentioned in the beginning, where we started from and where we've been working with Frosmo now for a decade, they have become hugely popular and they're evolving really quickly. And browsers have become so much better just during the last about 8 years. So these all are causing this separation of front end and back end. And the big promise for the business people are here in these 4 bubbles. So the first thing is that the people who are responsible for content, they shouldn't need to worry anymore about how the content will work on different kind of screens. There are all the time more and more different kind of screens. But the content people should be able to focus just on that content. So a little bit less stress for them. Just make the perfect content. Front-end people will make sure it works for all different kind of screens. The second thing is that you don't want to be prison of legacy solutions, legacy software, etc. So when you have this architecture, you can switch these software components more easily than compared to the old world. Because everything is based on these APIs. And we're going to hear the latter presentation all about a new way about the APIs. Then for users, for consumers, these new modern JavaScript frameworks and this modern way of building the front end means much better user experience because it loads faster, it uses the best elements, it doesn't need to do so many old school backend server calls, which slows down the experience. So it's really smoother, nicer, more native application experience wherever you go. And the fourth thing is that if you don't implement this, you're not going to be able to hire developers. They don't want to work for your company if they don't get to use these latest and newest open source technologies. So my next question to you guys is that have you heard about React, Angular, Vue? If you have, are you using those? Which of those? And then the next question is, have you heard about PWA? And if you have you guys implemented it? Do you need to know what BWA is? If so, it's progressive web apps. I'm going to talk soon about it too. But please, yeah. React, Angular, Vue, PWA. Yep. All right, guys. So raise your arm if you're using one of these frameworks in your front end. React, Vue, Angular, one of these frameworks in your front end. Do you know? There were a couple hands up there. Okay. What about progressive web apps? Has anyone implemented that their services? No. All right. So these three frameworks are open source, but there are very powerful companies behind them, companies that want to dominate the world, right? So Angular is by Google. Google is supporting that. React is by Facebook. Vue is by ex-Googlers. And these companies are supporting these frameworks. So these frameworks, what framework means is that it's again a faster and easier way to build front end. So you don't need to start from zero as a developer. These frameworks are gaining popularity really fast. Millions and millions of websites are adopting these to their front end. Right now, React, which is a Facebook-based supported, is leading the pack, and then second comes Angular, and third is Vue. But more important graph, and this, guys, you need to pay attention to, is this. This is the graph that is showing how many implementations have been done using these frameworks that are available for any developer in the world to use for free. This is billions, by the way. And this is from 28 days. So it means that whenever a developer wants to implement something to the site, let's say you come up with an idea that, hey, we want our search box to work a little bit differently. What do? If they can use these latest open source frameworks, is that they go check it out if someone else has built it. And then they take it to your site. You don't need to wait for IBM anymore for 1 year to build it for you. They go there and they take it. That's how they want to work these days. And they probably share some of it with the next ones. So this is the solution what the software developers have come up with to solve that problem of slowness and pain and whatever of one system or backend spaghetti. So open source. Use these frameworks to build the front end, and then because it's open source, it's so much faster to develop because everyone is developing their front ends together. And native mobile apps are gonna be history. Why? Because it's really, 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 really painful to have multiple systems to develop. So software developers have solved this too. So Google really started to make this possible a few years ago. It's called progressive web app. It means that you can make any website to work just as a native application. And you don't even need to download it from the App Store. You can just save it to your mobile phone, and it just works as a native mobile app. And you can use any of these modern JavaScript frameworks to convert it to work like a native app. So that's again one thing to justify why the developers like it, why it's good for the consumers, etc. And us as business people really need to understand this because first of all, if you don't jump this ride, your competition is probably using it already. All of those big companies I mentioned are of course using it because they support it. So these companies, everyone will eventually take part of this open source. And yeah, developers want to build less stuff from zero by themselves and rather mesh up and mash and create, recreate. And thirdly, mobile apps, native apps will disappear and be converted to these progressive web apps. So this is how it looks like. This is a sort of a rough architecture picture. Here below you have the systems that are responsible for people's names, addresses, payments, etc. You have systems responsible for adding and removing products. You have the marketing technologies to drive people there to the site. You have business intelligence stuff, and depending on your industry, product information management systems, ERPs, etc. And they will all communicate with the front end through APIs. And then the front end will be built most likely with one of these three frameworks. This is how it's going to look like instead of you going to IBM and saying, I want it all from you guys. Boom. That world most likely will disappear completely. So my question, if this is so amazing thing, what do you guys think are the downsides of this separated front end? What are the negative things about it? 1 minute conversation. Middle table here. Did you guys discover any problems? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Anything else you guys came up with? Well, it's how it's viewed at the market is that there are three problems. The first thing is that this is a very new world evolving quickly. The front end is open source, as said, so it's missing a lot of those managerial tools, like business-related managerial tools and features that have been built to these e-commerce platforms during the last 10, 15 years. So there are really not tools or features for targeting or multivariate or A/B testing or data transfer standards with these frameworks. The second thing is that there is you said about the ownership. Yes, it's a really difficult for companies to understand that uh, how the front end structure really works. You know, your developers come and go. You don't really have a unified understanding how it's being built. They use the best practice of that particular moment. Maybe that changes. You don't have standardized testing environments or clear error tracking for your business to follow up what's happening at the front end. And then the third thing is that it's changing so quickly that companies have really difficulties keeping up with the pace. So previous versions are usually not supported. So if you've implemented certain version of those frameworks to your front end, and then Google and Facebook are not gonna wait for you, but they're gonna come up with the new version, the community, and boom, then the developers are like, no, we don't want to use that old version anymore, man. That's over. We're done with that. And then you're like, okay, I can't find any more developers who can actually develop with that version. So those are sort of the key three core problems or challenges discovered at the market. Uh, uh, the front.
If it's changing so quickly and so fast, how about its security? Maybe there's something that developers missed or something,
Yeah,
and there are some security issues.
that is also a very good point, that you have to build the architecture so that you don't have in the front end actually the critical information about your customers, for example. That's why they have to be handled here in the backend systems. That's a very good point. Then there is also this, that the old companies are quickly trying to transform their platforms into headless. So they are building quickly APIs to these old platforms, and they're sort of a hybrid approach. Can be quite difficult because you don't necessarily get rid of all the problems related to your e-commerce platform if they just build forcefully APIs to it. Some of the legacy will sort of carry over to your new front end. So some parts of the front end you cannot maybe change or interact with because of the limitations of the APIs that has been built on top of old e-commerce platform. Also, third risk is these sort of very marketing friendly tools. So usually very pinpoint one tools that focus on doing one thing in the front end really well. It's it can easily create data silos you cannot access. Again, you might start storing code to an external place from your version control. If you have multiple of these, you start to end up into this spaghetti situation, not anymore in your backend, but now in your front end, if you have too many one feature tools there. So a lot of complexity to your setup, and starts to slow down your front end experience. So these are sort of the key problems discovered by the market. So then, if you remember from the beginning, the third market factor from technical perspective was the implementing artificial intelligence to your front end. So my question to you guys is, and this is the last one I promise, is have you guys implemented any AI models to your front end? And if you have, how did you do it?
should be but we're not there yet. But you use it. What about you guys? No, it's not. We have our opportunity and we need to run. We need to use the platforms. That's why we invested in it. Really early. We do think it's an important step that we decided to adopt this late, and that we do have opportunities for
All right, guys, raise your arm if you have implemented AI models to your front end. One, two, one, two, three, three. Okay, pretty good. Very nice. So, yeah, why on earth is it so important? Everyone's talking about it. Uh, the thing is that once you've developed an AI model, you need to, of course, get it to your front end. If you have a very complex system, it's very painful to get it there. And then if you even manage to get it there, the nasty thing about these AI models is that you need to also continuously modify those. You need to be able to change and improve them all the time. AI is not at the level that it's so advanced that it would just magically run everything from you for you once it's been implemented. But we as humans need to train it, need to work together with it, modify it to make it work. So I'm not talking about just AI-based or machine learning-based product recommendations or content optimization, but I'm talking about someone mentioned data lake here, modeling that takes, for example, into account long amount of history between you and the customer. You have different algorithms for that, for different purposes, answering different things. So here are some examples what we've been implementing together with our customers to their front ends. Modeling for customer churn. So if we have a VIP customer, we want to know and understand what is the risk of them not buying from us anymore but going to the competitor. Let's take 3 or 4 or 5 years of historical data from the CRM about those customers and then do a model from that starts to predict this behavior that, hey, we're about to lose this customer. Another version of that model is trying to understand what kind of behavior predicts that this customer will become a VIP customer for us. So will buy continuously from us, regularly spending huge amounts of money. How do we understand that early as enough? Because as we saw from the beginning, the marketing investments are so crazy big, so crazy high. We need to try to understand that as early as possible to allocate our budgets correctly. Depending on industry, as I said, this differentiation in digital is really important. So how do we make a perfect combination of our service or products to this particular customer? So for example, with teleoperators, what is the perfect combination of the phone, data package, what do you call it, like a call package, whatever. So it's an example of complex decision making for the consumer. How do we make it as easy as possible for them and try to understand what is the perfect combination, feature and product combination for this particular customer. Next action during a session. You remember when I said when is really important in the part of customer journey. So how do we create models that will tell us what this customer will do during this session next when the customer arrives? So at which part of the customer journey they are and what will they perform next at your service. For example, in betting industry, I use betting industry a lot as a as an example because betting industry, think about it. Blackjack is the same everywhere in the world. Horse betting is the same everywhere in the world. What is the only way for betting companies to differentiate themselves? It's a digital service. In sports betting, 60% of the revenue is generated 15 minutes before the sports event. You really need to understand what the user will perform, what the user is going to do during this session when you get the user there. 15 minutes is 60% of the revenue. So you got to be able to implement these and you got to be able to modify them continuously. Another reason why front-end and back-end are separated. So, as I said in the beginning, it's really holistic, this digital experience management and development. It's really, really demanding. It requires a huge change from the companies. This is what Forrester says that you need to be able to take into account in your strategy. A little bit upper level stuff here, but really you have to have enough analytics capable of people to be able to create this data and reports and make the organization breathe and think from the perspective of these digital business models. That's just how it is. Metrics, KPIs, those need to be clear for everyone across the organization. It has to be standardized across the organization, preferably across your industry, so you can compare. The third thing is, as I said, you just need to be able to get the best out of technology and software, otherwise you're going to lose. You're not going to be able to stay at the market. Fourth key element, it's continuous work. It's continuous process. It's never ending. And you just need to be able to do it really fast all the time. So all these, the challenge for the companies is to align all these four things. That was the informational part of my presentation. Just really quickly, a little bit about Frosmo, because some of you might need to leave for my last presentation. So this is just going to take 95 seconds. So how do we at Frosmo want to help companies to take the best out of these new technologies, this separation of front-end and back-end? Well, we've analyzed the market, as you saw, tried to understand what are the problems there. How do we help you guys to create these personalized customer journeys? Every step of those and optimize those continuously. Well, what we want to achieve you guys to do is that we want to bridge the gap between you business people and then your developers. That Frosmo is sort of a tool which helps you guys to really test and evolve continuously in a very fast manner. The idea is that your content people don't need to change any of their processes. So Frosmo just tells what to show, when to show, where to show in the browser. And then Frosmo is part of your IT system. We don't want to be a separate thing. So we could become part of your front end. But what we do is we provide these very powerful features we know that will make it really fast to develop those personalized customer journeys and monitor how they're doing. So as part of your IT system, IT stack, but features from the perspective how to make your life easier when you want to grow your business. So these are some of the key features. So the first thing is this who. So with Frosmo, it's really super easy to target customers based on their online behavior, but that is not enough. You need to be able to merge that with the data from your CRM or DMP. A lot of times those CRMPs and DMPs don't keep up with what's happening there real time, so that's why this combination is so powerful. Combining the on-ride behavior from the historical behavior. Second thing, we want to make it possible for you to show any content in any part of your service using any of these frameworks, and we support all the versions. You can use any of the version you like. You can also use them on top of any system. It's connected with your version control, so it's really part of your development. And of course, you need to be able to run multiple versions all the time. Not just multiple customer journeys simultaneously, but multiple versions of those in order to be able to optimize it. And then the when part. You have to be able to trigger the content you prefer when you like. So we have very powerful features for that you can define really easily rules when you want to show, for example, show some tailored AI recommendations. And of course, feed results to any system over an API. That was my presentation.